you don't have a vote in inflation. You don't have a vote in monetary policy. And that monetary policy, if you just realize the natural state of the free market is deflation. Everybody has to compete to give you more value. It means the productivity in the rate of the world today, if it was 5% or 7% with AI or 10% next year with AI, it means any inflation from that number is stealing that money from you. Not from zero, from negative fives.
Okay.
You should be getting richer every year, even if you did nothing.
Hey folks, Flo here with Blockchain North. I'm here with Jeff Booth, who was our first YouTube interview ever 4 years ago. You say, wow, but for us, that was a really big deal at the time. I'm just wondering, so you wrote the book, The Price of Tomorrow, which I read 6 years ago. How has your thought evolved since?
I think it's playing out exactly as what I wrote in the book. I wrote in the book that AI would accelerate. So it would not accelerate, move on an exponential path.
Yeah.
Most people would miss that. It would bump into a financial system based on inflation, and it would try to stop that. And these systems were incompatible together. So I think everything I wrote about the book is still valid today. In fact, if you read it today and look back at all of the predictions, you're almost exactly right. The only thing as I would add to that is, I left Bitcoin as a thought process at the end, and at that time I was a Bitcoiner, but I had a 5% probability in my mind that Bitcoin would fail at some point.
Yeah.
And through trying to disprove that or trying to see where it would fail, I've come to a conclusion it won't fail.
Zero.
Wow.
So we're going to talk about Bitcoin, of course, but you're true to point out that the book is not about Bitcoin. For me, it's about monetary policy manipulation, the broader economy, money, basically. I have a very simple question that I've been wondering for a few years now. So do we actually live in capitalistic societies?
No, I don't even think people really know what that means. It's so
Free market.
So absolutely not. You don't have a vote in inflation. You don't have a vote in monetary policy. And that monetary policy, if you just realize the natural state of the free market is deflation, because you try to everybody has to compete to give you more value. It means the productivity in the rate of the world today, if it was 5% or 7% with AI or 10% next year with AI, it means any inflation from that number is stealing that money from you. Not from zero, from negative fives. You should be getting richer every year, even if you did nothing, by the collective work of all people competing to provide you value, even if you did nothing.
Okay.
But you live in the opposite system. So then you have to ask yourself, if I don't have the vote in the thing that matters most, does my vote count at all?
That's just the question alone we could do a whole interview on. So Bitcoin has been around for 16 years, let's say. Not a glitch, hashing one block after the other, perfectly as planned, basically. No cyber attack either. That's notable. People talk about the threat of quantum, but that's for another conversation. But it's fair to say that Wall Street is in on Bitcoin. Governments or states are in on Bitcoin. So is Bitcoin still true to its original mission? Is it still decentralized? And is it potentially manipulated by big institutions already?
So you'd have to assume that anything that was outside of control will try to be controlled, right? Because human nature, fear, greed, will try to control this. The thing I said with Bitcoin, where I say it won't fail, is because I'm convinced that it's impossible to attack this.
Okay.
It is repricing the world. And most people are pricing the world from a piece of paper, thinking Bitcoin's going up. Well, Bitcoin is actually, all prices according to Bitcoin are falling exactly like you would expect in a global free market. So my house was 300 Bitcoin 5 years ago.
Okay.
My house is 20 Bitcoin today.
It's a nice house.
Yeah, nice house. And my house will be 1 Bitcoin in 5 years.
Very interesting. Yeah, the comparison. And I think there's a widget that came up maybe a few weeks ago, perhaps even a bit longer than that allows you on your browser to have all prices in both dollars or whatever, fiat currency and Satoshis, not actually in Bitcoin, just perhaps to give it more, I guess. Yeah, why would we want to do that? Why should we perhaps look at Satoshis and not just Bitcoins?
Well, so when I describe Bitcoin, I'm actually talking about Satoshis. Satoshis is just the unit of Bitcoin. It's a unit, so each Bitcoin is divisible by 100 million Satoshis. So it's a smaller unit, the divisible nature of Bitcoin.
Which makes it in a way more accessible than talking in Bitcoins. Because a lot of people will say to me like, oh, but Bitcoin is already 100K. It's too late for me, to get
those people. What I just described, as long as this stays decentralized and secure, they have no idea how early we are. it reprices everything in the world.
Right.
And so we are insanely early. And even for your podcast or people listening, if you have all of these questions, and then you imagine most of your friends have these questions too and haven't done the work on Bitcoin, imagine how many other people have those same questions. That's how early we are on this product.
I guess if you're asking the question, you're already a step ahead of most people. Why should Canadians and Canada more broadly care about Bitcoin now, even more, let's say, than perhaps 2 years ago?
So you have a global race in the free market. The free markets are more competitive than centralized markets. We know this for sure because if you look at Russia or if you look at other countries that are centrally controlled markets, they fail against free markets. So free markets are always more productive. And this is imposing a global free market. So if Canada doesn't want to be in the free market, if they want to manipulate money to be in a closed market, and the impact of that manipulation of money means bigger government, more regulation, destruction of the free market, then they'll do that. But all citizens will suffer from doing that. Or you could embrace the free market.
Yeah.
You could go early. And it's the same thing that's true for every individual person holding Bitcoin. Their money can't be debased. So they're getting more value forever. The same thing's true for a government. If they held Bitcoin, then they could provide more services forever.
And pay back their debt?
And so the debt's a different problem. The debt in our system is the system. So if all the debt, a credit-based system, money is lent into existence. So when a bank gives you a mortgage, there was no cost of them making up that money that was loaned into existence. You have a cost in the interest rate you bear, but there was no cost. So that entire system is a credit-based system. So what it means is if you paid back all the money, if all the debt went away, there'd be no money. Right? So give that a rattle in your brain, right? And realize what... And so the function of a credit-based system that we live in has to grow credit exponentially forever, which is the opposite of the free market, where it's free market, the productivity flows through deflation to people.
So the key word there is exponentially.
Exactly,
right?
exponentially.
Which is hard for the brain to explain or to understand, as you write very well about. So the Genius Act was just passed in the U.S. A few days ago. We're saying this, what are we, June, where are we today? The 18th or 19th. Anyway, Genius Act was passed. This was long awaited. In Canada, it feels like this will never happen. Does that have a bearing on Bitcoin? Does that have an impact?
What you see in individual states, in countries, game theory is accelerating.
Okay.
And some people are starting to realize the same thing I'm saying right now, that if they don't go, somebody else will. So all of these friendly moves to be able to try to drive faster than other nations, Bitcoin accumulation is in line with what I'm saying. It's game theory is just really starting. Okay. And that means there's only 21 million Bitcoin. And most of those have already been mined. So as you try to, as all of that demand tries to get Bitcoin, because it's essentially, it can't be debased and everything else can be. So as all that demand starts to realize what I'm saying and it starts to move in, you're going to see parabolic rises. And the people that went earlier will be better off for it. The countries that went earlier will be better off for it. And the ones that went later will cling to their socialist policies, and their economies will suffer.
Very, very simply explained and relatively easy to understand in this case. A lot of things require more reflection. What is your message to Canadians right now who are still looking at Bitcoin and thinking like, nah, maybe not for me, not right now, I don't see it?
Just be genuinely curious. That's it. Instead of listening to media or some expert or it would tell you how you should live your life, just be generally curious on first principle. Just ask the same question as I did. Is the natural state of the free market deflation? Is that true? Do entrepreneurs have to commit more value to free? And do you use the value that's created by entrepreneurs?
But if I can ask, like most of my friends, if I say this, will go like, what does it do for me? Like, I've got kids, I've got my work, I've got to make dinner tonight. I mean, you know what I mean? The preoccupations are very often short-term based. And what you describe is in many cases, not only profound, but also very much long-term thinking, which most of us don't really have time for even.
Well, I think that's it. Most people in the world today from the other system are in a system based on coercion, fear, and control. and they believe that there's somebody else to blame. So they're watching the news. They're getting scared of AI is going to take their jobs.
Exactly.
They're watching the news on wars breaking out everywhere. They're watching what Trump's doing. They're spending all of their time in this news cycle feeding the beast that requires them to feed the beast. And they're wondering, what they're really wondering is this: how will I be able to feed my family later? How will I be able to live later against all of this? It's getting harder and harder and harder. Yeah. And they don't know they're stuck in that system, making it stronger with all their actions. And it's like they're in a jail cell complaining to their captors, right, that the jail cell door is open and they could walk over to the other system.
So what do you say to them?
And have abundance?
But what do you say to your?
I say exactly what I just say. Exactly what I just. Yeah. They sometimes it takes a while. It takes you hearing it over and over and over again. Okay. You and I have had this conversation, right? It takes you hearing it over and over and over again, and then you have to come to the conclusion: is this true? Which system do I want to live in? Do I want to live in the system that has unlimited money, denominator constantly goes up, and all my time gets devalued forever? What would the world look like under those circumstances? Who would win? What would that control system look like if that money had to be stolen from you and aggregated up and into a control system? Right. Would any politician be capable from that system to stop that? They wouldn't be able to stop it either, right? It would just continue to get worse and worse and worse. But you don't have to wait for it to. You could move to your time today, right now.
So let me ask you then, if let's call it the Bitcoin plan goes, or if Bitcoin goes according to plan, let's put it this way, what kind of a disruption are we in for and over what period of time? How will it materialize? I mean, some people might be afraid of Bitcoin even and think that, it might be hugely disruptive for their life. And
it changes literally everything you know about economy, how economies work, free markets work, how governments work. It changes literally everything. Yeah. But what I'm describing, it doesn't matter what I'm saying. It's imposing this discipline. As long as it stays decentralized and secure, which I'm convinced it will stay decentralized and secure, you have an open, decentralized, secure protocol bounded by energy. It is imposing new rules for society. Your only choice is whether you believe those rules or not. And you're welcome to every single person. So you don't have to wait for what everyone else is doing. You could be a villager in Malawi because this is an open network, and you could put your economic energy there. And if somebody doesn't in Canada, the villager in Malawi will be far wealthier than the person in Canada. And so it doesn't matter what you think of it. It's imposing a new discipline, and it's your choice to either understand it or don't.
It's a natural law, as is the rain, by the way, when we do an interview like this outside. Thanks for playing along. My final question to you is, are you hopeful? Because you've been, kind of advocating for Bitcoin. You wrote the book, you're speaking all over the world, and sometimes I wonder if you're not, banging your head against the wall or preaching to the converted. But do you feel like we're making good progress, and are you hopeful?
Wildly hopeful for humanity, and wildly hopeful for what's happening. You see, I get to invest on top of this. I get to invest in the best entrepreneurs all over the world.
You're not just talking to people.
Exactly. The rate of growth it's happening on top of Bitcoin, what's coming to be able to deliver more value to society is so staggering. It's bigger than the internet. And people are misunderstanding what I'm saying because they're looking at the internet. People misunderstood the internet in the late 80s too, what it would be in the early 90s. They always, and then they use it every day. And they were still misunderstanding what was happening underneath. The same thing's happening in Bitcoin. You're having a complete transition, a state change from a system we've always known to a new system that forces abundance to flow broadly to society. That means every single person on the planet is contributing value to you on the Bitcoin network. And all you have to do is be a part of it or not be a part of it. If you're not a part of it, you won't be contributed to.
You've heard it here on Blockchain North from Jeff Booth. Thank you very much. Great to speak with you, and sorry for the rain.